The butler did it! Targets identified. Agent Honey, this is Wrinkles. Are you prepared? Philip asks into his communicator. The range on this custom model was very short, but it also was encrypted beyond the point of security and well into the realm of absurdity, meaning it was just barely acceptable for him. Prepared to strangle you for this code name, sir. Harriet snarls, and he can only smile at the rage simmering in her voice. The girl was a mess of little hang-ups all over the place, made dealing with her like walking in a minefield, albeit less actual danger. He blamed that newfangled outrage culture where everyone's so obsessed with being a victim for some godforsaken reason. Still, it had damn near shattered fairly thoroughly when it came up against the reality of their situation. That's the spirit. Finish your mission and you might get a shot at the prize. He encourages her, utterly unconcerned that the axiom-bloated woman might actually get something done. This thin, false outrage always died when it was time to get your hands dirty. All right, in position. Assuming the identity, Harriet mutters. Keep me informed, Philip orders. Agent Jailbait, Wrinkles here, come in. You're having too much fun with these names, sir, Herbert remarks. Nonsense, I'm having just enough. Now, are you in position? Philip asks. Yes, sir. I'm in the shrubbery in the hydroponics section. Amidst the darker foliage, Herbert replies. Very good, Agent Jailbait. Begin moving towards Target Alpha 2 and await Agent Honey, Philip remarks. Swallowing a grumble, Herbert shifts ever so slightly through the foliage and watches the numerous workers tending to the many different dark blue bushes, all of them growing different forms of narcotic berries native to the world of Brule. At first glance, it seemed like a connection, but it was just one part of many different narcotic ingredients being grown on this spire to be refined on another. The drug it created was called melange, as it was a melange of a dozen different natural drugs. So, what do you think about the boss lady's newest plan? A nearby gardener asks the other. What? What plan? I wasn't told anything. The other gardener replies, We're starting to grow synth plants, particularly chip ferns, which means she's up to something to do with computers. Or robots. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. This is one of the better jobs I can get without a friend in higher places, and I'm not that much of a people person. So it's growing narco plants and trying not to see or hear anything I'm not supposed to. I'm keeping my head down. The other answers as she pours water onto the plants. Herbert is very still and focusing on the twin axiom abilities to phase ever so slightly out of reality and from sight as well. Oh, come on, aren't you the least bit curious? The other one asks. Of course, but I also know the danger involved of asking more. I don't know who's backing little Miss Darla, but the poor girl is clearly just the face of this. All those days she walks in stressed, so very stressed. The gardener says, moving on, unaware of the infiltrator who's little more than a spirit already moving away. The clop-clop of hooves on the floor draws his attention. It's Agent Honey. His visor allows him to see the flows of axiom bleeding off her disguise. It's also useful for spotting the fucking cloakin'. The invisible variants might be rare compared to the rest, but the species is so huge that there's already been hundreds trying to muck around with the Dauntless. They'd stopped when the guards had started making a game of how hard they could literally throw the idiot invisible reptile women out. A pair of workout fanatics had managed to pitch 110 meters before she bounced and rolled. Rumors had spread and the spies had decided to try disguise rather than walking in while invisible. He dashes, unseen and untouchable between the rows, pausing under them so he can sneak more traditionally and doesn't develop a headache for overusing the axiom. Some of the men had learned to like the sensation of pressure in their minds. Others could ignore it entirely, and still others wouldn't even feel it. Most felt it as an uncomfortable weight that piled on the more you did until it just hurt too much. "Ma'am!" the door guard says and opens the door to the inner parts of the area. Harriet simply stops and crosses her arms at the guard before glaring. "Ma'am?" the guard asks as the other one backs away. Herbert slips in invisibly and taps his mic twice to let them know he's in. Harriet breaks off the glare and walks in. The door closes behind her and she listens. Scares the hell out of me. I think she reads minds. Then seriously, keep it to yourself. I don't want your screw-ups to rub off on me, the other hisses. Neither notices the fact that Harriet planted the first 2 projectors on them. First 2 bugs are planted, sir. Operation Smoke has begun, Harriet says into her mic, and Sir Philip nods. Then my agents, you know your places, you know the plan. To work, Sir Philip orders. Elsewhere and deeper in the offices, Darla Swipe's tail lashes back and forth as she regards the information. They're running on a deficit after the last failed job. A simple snatch and grab with some new girls to get some blood on them had gone tits up. There had been death, destruction, multiple thefts, and that absolute wretch Isabel had interfered. She really needed to send her cousin a few explosives one of these days, otherwise the bitch might actually get lucky. There was a prickling sensation down her back. She's in danger. Something is up. "Hey, Knife Top, get in here," she orders, and there's the sound of a sudden brawl. Then her enforcer crashes through the door holding a duplicate of herself that she completely dominates. The double can't even get a proper word out as she screams in pain and is battered against the floor and walls. Well, that certainly shows which of the two is the fake. The only noise Knife Top ever makes are those of violence. "Hold her!" she says, standing up and walking around, fully in her cutesy-cute public persona, complete with simpering voice. "I don't know who you are, madam, but you're both very brave and very, very stupid to try and infiltrate my compound as my enforcer, while she's on the premises, no less," Darla says before reaching down to caress the terrified spy's face. "I know I look and sound like a sweet, innocent, in-over-her-head daughter of big, dirty money," she says in a tone to perfectly match her trendy outfit and adorable face. "But I grew out of that centuries ago, and I'm going to show you exactly how we dealt with troublemakers in the Dark Cabal." Darla hisses, and the pungent stench of urine permeates the room. "Really? You're that pathetic? May as well just kill you then. Cowards have no real place, and they break so easily under torture that they're just gone before the fun even begins." Slowly, ever so slowly, a claw extends itself from the tip of one of her padded fingers and slinks downwards to the spy's eye. "Which is your favorite?" "Let her speak, Knife Top. I want to know which eye she wants to lose first." Darla purrs at her soon-to-be victim. "I'm not a spy," the fake squeals, and Darla giggles. "That's a heck of a claim. You've got a weird mix of a jellied spine and sheer tits, girl. You pissed yourself, but you obviously lie right to my face. Of course you're a spy. You're a double of Knife Top, and she's the one pinning you down," Darla giggles. "What?" "No, I'm not. The spy's cut off when the door opens to reveal another spy. Everything goes still for a moment. "Some idiots have been mistaking me for Knife Top. I thought it best to let you know before I get killed for it," she says. And Darla looks from her to the Knife Top on the floor to Knife Top. "What is going on?" Darla demands as she stands up with a growl and slowly pads around to the newcomer. She then slams an axiom-hardened palm into the gut of the newest Knife Top, and then, when the taller woman doubles over in agony, she grabs her head and slams her power into it. The scream of the dying meat leaves a ringing noise in her ears that quickly fades as she drops the burning husk. Stupid girl had no idea what was going on. A waste of effort, though it had been cathartic to kill the incompetent shit. A tiny shard of Kutha floats up. On contact, she can feel the axiom wrap around her in her state of heightened awareness. "Boss, you just became a copy yourself." The cowardly wretch on the floor whimpers, and Darla drops the piece of metal. She then makes a jerking motion with her head, and the worthless coward's neck is snapped like a twig. Her enforcer clops up to her and waits for orders. "Kill everyone wearing your shape. I don't care what they say, end them," she orders, and Knife Top nods as she stalks past. "Boss, there's something—" a fake Knife Top says, coming around the corner, says before screaming in agony as Knife Top lives up to her name and impales her through the chest with her antlers. She growls as the screams begin echoing out in earnest. Someone had identified her greatest agent, her personal killing machine. Someone wanted to take advantage of the woman's unlimited access. But thankfully, they didn't seem to know that the woman had an axiomatic mental stake in her mind. She was some strangely fit but completely harmless Carib woman outside these properties, a perpetual bachelorette who just wasn't very lucky. But around Darla, around her business assets, a mute murder machine. The original girl was still completely unaware about the Knife Top personality. Even if they have studied Knife Top's other personality, the two girls don't know each other. She's fine. She doesn't even know anything beyond killing and intimidation. Can't even talk. "Interesting," a soft synthetic voice says nearby, its accent strange and yet thick enough to be heard clearly. She turns around and senses for Axiom, and there's nothing. No one else in the room but here. She rushes behind her desk and finds only a note on her chair. "I'm watching." She reads it out loud before a scream in the distance gets her to jump in horror. It's just Knife Top killing. It's just her pet mass murderer with the improved axiom-based frenzy patch. Yeah, the mental stake, it couldn't be subverted, could it? Frustrated at her moment of weakness, she slams the paper on her desk and stands up straight to take a deep breath. This is a mental game. Someone's playing with her and she won't let them. Her eyes fall upon the paper. Along the back is a single word. Yes! She freezes at the sight of it. It's not in galactic trade. It's in the angular scratches and gouges of Hrutha, her native tongue. Something moves behind her and she spins to confront it. Whatever it was is gone before she can see more than a dark blur. She's not safe. She's far from safe and needs to run. Now! The voice barks and she bolts to dodge whatever trap is coming. There are footsteps behind her. She sees nothing but a waver of Axiom. She races through Knife Top's killing field as bodies of her enforcer's duplicates litter the room before the blood-stained woman simply collapses in front of a terrified Tret that Darla doesn't pay attention to. Knife Top dropping is all the more reason to run. She reaches her secret escape tunnel and hears whatever was following her slam into the emergency hatch. She breathes a sigh of relief as she drops down 2 levels and below her, a light fixture explodes to drop her safely in a parking garage. Her escape vehicle is there. Unassuming and plain, the car isn't even souped up, but so boring that no one would expect anyone to drive that and be up to something. She rushes into the vehicle and activates it. Reality is pulled out from under her as she feels the null slam into her, disabling the car, her body, and placing her at the bleeding edge of unconsciousness. Reality fades and swims, with the only certainty being the sudden sound of footsteps, sharp and measures they approach at a brisk pace. Then the door opens and she falls to the floor of the garage, limp and boneless. Wrinkles here, Operation Smoke is a success, proceed to extraction. A prim and clear voice notes. Rage floods her body as she knows she's been played, spooked into escaping and right into their trap. Her claws start to unsheathe as will alone begins to push back against the cruel laws of tainted physics. Then something crashes into the back of her head and she knows nothing more. All right, gentlemen, I've arrived. What's the emergency? Admiral Cistern asks and raises an eyebrow to see a Carib woman with gore-smeared antlers strapped down heavily to a table that's been raised up to allow access to the back of the woman's head. The leather straps are being reinforced by thick chains and small device designed to disperse Null on a table next to her, watching her with a small laser. Should she begin to struggle, a blast of Null will shatter any Axiom enhancement she might think to use. Sir? Thank goodness you're here. You need to see this for yourself. Dr. Wren says there's a strange glint to his glasses, making them perfectly reflective and revealing nothing about his thoughts. Nearby and writing furiously is one of the Nerd Squad, Corporal Gerald Lore, an enthusiast for Axiom enchantment. Admiral on deck, Corporal Lore announces and salutes. At ease, soldier, Admiral Cistern remarks, returning it. Now, what's this about? There was no small amount of urgency in your request for my presence. Sir, we made a bad assumption. What we thought was a refinement of mind control techniques was actually a devolution. What's happened to this woman is the real deal, Laura says, first holding up his hand as if holding something, then gesturing to the restrained Carib with a panicked look. To put things in more comprehensible terms, if you'll recall my report on frenzy patches and the physiological and psychological effects on people, as well as inherent dangers, you will remember that it is possible to program a patch to direct the rage it causes at specific targets. This effectively allows less scrupulous individuals to force innocent civilians into attacking assassination targets in a berserk rage, while also suffering the equivalent of a borderline lethal adrenal rush. Dr. Wren explains, and Admiral Cistern nods. Yes, it was rather disturbing. Some of the EFL have been using false frenzy patches to excuse bad behavior, and those on stations have uncovered the fact that the trick is not entirely original when they help with security. Admiral Cistern notes. Frenzy patches are fat, anemic kids with busted legs compared to this monster. We're still going through Swipe's notes to figure out how the hell she made this thing, and if there are any more of them. Laura remarks from where he takes down more and more notes as he leans over to look. Get another look at the back of the Carib's head. Whenever he takes a pause in writing, his hands twitch in a sort of strangling motion that goes to ringing, to fidgeting, to shaking. The man seems completely unable to be still, not a good sign. Do we have a name for this thing? Admiral Cistern asks. Our current name is a persona nail, Dr. Wren remarks before running a hand through his hair. This is serious, sir. Only in my worst nightmares have I ever imagined such an abuse of another person. A frenzy patch is at most an hour-long blast of rage that can be directed at a single target as powerful combat drugs kick in. This thing has rewritten this girl's whole life. It's been in her for at least a decade and a half, and it has 2 settings, active and passive. When it's active, and it is currently active, it overwrites her personality with the persona of Knife Top. a mute Carib serial killer, and walking war crime with complete slavish obedience to Darla Swipe, enormous bouts of paranoia, and a massive case of sadomasochism that she recklessly indulges in. Good Lord, what about the victim? Knifetop's host? Admiral Cistern asks delicately. Her name is Holly Clatterhooves. 30 years old, and from what we can tell, she's had this thing half her life. There's a missing persons report that was closed 13 years ago. When the nail was put in her, she ran away from home and became both a recluse and a workout fanatic. From what I can tell, there are several aspects to the passive state. A workout addiction, a complete aversion to unhealthy foods and lifestyle choices, complete reclusiveness, and a large series of trigger words designed to force certain behaviors. This includes the activation phrase of knifetop in the Hrutha language. This kid wasn't given a chance to grow up and was made into a monster, Lore explains as he continues his study of the device, grimacing and twitching as he does so. Admiral Cistern takes a moment to consider the wisdom of allowing the Nerd Squad, a group of individuals almost entirely composed of the psychologically abnormal, as much lateral freedom as they've enjoyed. Normally they're stable, but Corporal Lore looks half a second away from breaking. Then the man puts everything to the side and asks for a few moments, which are granted, then he leaves the room. He leaves in what's clearly a forced calm and ensures the door is closed tight behind him. Then, through the reinforced soundproof bulkhead, a loud scream can be heard. It lasts exactly 10 seconds, then stops. 2 seconds later, Corporal Lore re-enters the room. His stride is perfect military, his salute so crisp it would bring a tear to a drill instructor's eye, and his movements precise to the point you would need survey equipment to find a flaw within it. His eyes are flat and dead. Whatever coping mechanisms this man has are running on overdrive. He takes his notes fast and crisply. He works in complete silence, more like an automaton than a person. Dr. Wren and Admiral Cistern watch, one in concern and the other planning interception if he does something foolish or outright snaps. He fills nearly 10 pages with notes before putting everything to the side. Sir? Without the original blueprints or extracting the object in question, I am unable to extract further information. Permission to leave, sir! Corporal Lore says with his heels slamming together and perfect parade ground salute snapping off. Permission granted, Admiral Cistern responds with a salute of his own. Sir! Thank you, sir! Corporal Lore barks out and marches out of the room at a clip that most would need to jog to match. That could have gone worse, Dr. Wren notes. Indeed, Doctor, excuse me, Admiral Cistern says, pulling out his communicator. Erica? Yes, Doctor, I need you to schedule an appointment for Corporal Gerald Lore and contact him about it. He's under a great deal of stress, and I need to know if he has suffered any damage from it. He orders and nods at her confirmation before hanging up. Best to keep on top of these things, he notes calmly. Yes, sir, Dr. Wren agrees. Back to the nail. We're prepping a surgical suite to first scan, then help in the extraction of this device. The problem is that the brains of extraterrestrials are very different from human brains. We may need to bring in an outside neurosurgeon, Dr. Wren explains as he walks over to begin scanning all of Lore's notes. What's the difference? Will this be an issue in the future? Not at all, sir. In fact, it will be a boon. You see, while the human brain has specialized sections, each one is very good at what they do. The scare we had of mind readers some weeks ago just won't happen, as the vast majority of mind-reading techniques take a mental scan of everything occurring at once. In a human, however, the greatest priority is given to the more primitive aspects of the mind. Our secrets are drowned under our heartbeats, digestive tracts, respiration system, sensory input, raw instinct, and several other factors. The human mind is gibberish to read. Yet the alien mind is not? Admiral Cistern asks. The alien mind is non-specialized, we don't know for certain. But we believe this would allow them to recover from brain damage far more easily than a human. The rest of the brain can pick up the slack from any damaged portion, where a human one struggles to do as such at times. If this can be confirmed, we can move forward and extract the spike. A short healing coma to help the patient recover, and we've freed this girl from a lifetime of slavery. After which we can study the nail in its totality before destroying it. How quickly can this be done? I want this thing studied and countermeasures devised as soon as possible, Admiral Cistern says, and Dr. Wren nods. With your permission and a full team, we can have it in containment and being looked over by our best men within 12 hours, and that's if we need to hire an alien neurosurgeon. Without that process, we can do it in 6 if we rush. No rushing. I want this done right, Admiral Cistern states sternly as he walks over to examine the back of Knifetop's head. The nail's head is maybe the size of a dime, tiny and only really visible because the fur and hair around it has been shaved away. For a moment, the fur is gone to be replaced by human skin, and he's looking at the back of the head of one of his own people. He suppresses the raw sensation of rage that burns inside him. A handful of lava is burning in his gut as he turns to meet Dr. Wren's gaze and sees his own outrage reflected back at him from the man's glasses. He swallows the rage and calms himself. This is a top priority, Doctor. We need to understand these things so we can detect and deactivate them with maximum efficiency. If they're willing to do something this disgusting to an innocent child, then we can safely assume that our soldiers and support staff will not be immune to this kind of abuse. Dr. Wren nods at the order and begins speaking in a calm tone. I think we may have a benefit, sir. The compartmentalization of the human mind may serve as a defense. The sheer priority the more base functions of our minds possess may interfere with the signals and make the implantation of the nails extremely obvious, for now at least. As we become more known in this galaxy, our biological advantages grow more and more simple to subvert. There's no cause to believe that our minds will be an exception to this pattern. You're taking this very well. Admiral Cistern notes, and Dr. Wren merely lowers his glasses to reveal just a storm of rage, disgust, and sheer scorn burning within. He rises his glasses back up, and the mirror-like reflection returns. Sir, I have studied, advanced, and tested the biological spheres of both medicine and science in general. I have dedicated my life to the pursuit of knowledge. I've created no less than 4 crops designed to fight desertification and push the Sahara back in on itself. That got me the Peace Prize. Yet it wasn't enough. So when the call came out for scientists on the Dauntless, I signed up. Now I'm faced with sheer horror inflicted by a monster to create another monster. A perversion of biology, psychology, and axiom study. His eyes visibly twitch and he takes a deep breath. Excuse me, sir, I need to get started with the preparations, Dr. Wren remarks. Hold a moment, Admiral Cistern remarks, and he glances to the null device. What would happen to her if she triggers the null burst? We're not certain. Likely it would severely damage if not destroy the nail, but what it would do to the girl hosting it I can't say. Her fur is unusually long for her kind, and it hides a monstrously powerful physique. The woman doesn't have a shred of fat on her and is made of braided tungsten wire for muscle. All of it natural, not axiom-enhanced, though we're not sure why. But what we are certain of is that the better an alien's conditioning without axiom, the better they can resist the effects. Or rather, the more they have to fall back on when they can't use it any longer. This woman is no less dangerous in a null-heavy zone. She could theoretically enter cruel space, and she'd only have some lower back pains from the size of her chest. The rest of her is streamlined into a killing machine. Dr. Wren notes as he takes off his glasses and polishing them with his eyes closed. The information is coming easily to the man. All the more reason to deprogram her then. I want this girl on the road to recovery before 24 hours have passed. You and me both, sir. I'll get started at once. Make it so, Doctor.